Good evening, everyone. Uh, I think it's 2 minutes past seven, and a few people are yet to join. But Professor Satyabrat Sinha is with us, so we'll start with today's lecture. Before that, I will uh, first likely introduce all of you to Professor Satyabrat Sinha. Welcome to the seventh day of the workshop on research paper writing and methodology in social science organized by the Jadavpur Association of International Relations, Jadavpur University, and the School of International Relations and Strategic Studies. Our speaker for today's lecture on the topic Mastering References and Citations is Professor Satyabrat Sinha. Welcome to the session, sir. It is a great privilege to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Prof. Professor Sinha currently teaches at the Department of Political Science, Presidency University. He has done his PhD in disarmament studies from the School of International Studies, JNU. Professor Sinha has also been associated with and has taught at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies, Sikkim University. His research interests are in South Asian politics, Indian foreign policy, and internal conflicts. So I think without any further delay, I would request Professor Satyabrat Sinha sir to take over the session here onwards. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sagnik. Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes,
Should
sir.
I speak
Yes, sir.
louder? Okay, great. So, I've been introduced. So, I teach in the Department of Political Science, and I'll be looking at, how we reference, how we do citations for, as today's part of the methodology workshop. So, I should thank Jadavpur Association of International Relations and the School of International Relations, Jadavpur University, for inviting me for this lecture. And so when we think about, I'm trying to, what I try to do in this presentation, I have a presentation, is try to sort of conceptually convey to you the idea of citations, why we need to do so, also how to go about doing it. And so if you look at it in all forms of, whether we are narrating a tale, whether we are writing a newspaper piece, whether we are reporting, I mean, it's almost in certain ways second nature to acknowledge our sources. So you'll be narrating a story, you'll say, not according to me, but so and so said this. So this is a part of even everyday conversations. But when you sort of look at that in in the academic world of academic writing, then you realize this need to acknowledge our sources is of utmost importance. And we need to acknowledge either our sources of information or arguments. For instance, if we have to just sort of consider what academic knowledge is, so you realize it is quite specific, and it's sort of academic knowledge also differentiates itself from other kinds of knowledge and beliefs. So, knowledge that is created in the academia involves certain practices, whether you can think in terms of methods, certain institutions like the university system, journals, or, the practice of peer review. So this academic community, through its practices, through its institutions, sort of recognizes what we consider knowledge, and this knowledge is generally peer reviewed. I can make certain claims, but unless the community as you have it sort of uh, acknowledges those claims, what I argue or what I assert may not be recognized as knowledge. So academic knowledge is a very very specific field, and it's differentiated from other forms of information. But like other forms of information that we narrate, uh, you know, we need to acknowledge our sources. So I will now start my presentation. Why would this occur? Yes. So can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Great. So I'm so now I've told you that in academia we have these different practices. So whatever academic writing you look at it, it's kind of a collaborative exercise. After all, whatever you are studying would rest on foundations of knowledge that have possibly been developed over time. For instance, whatever you are studying, the phenomena that you are studying will be based on, or it will use findings, understanding from earlier studies to build its arguments or to provide explanations. Very rarely, very rarely we write certain things which I think it's possible. I mean, I don't think that is possible. We never write anything which we sort of conjure out of thin air. It's always based on pre-existing knowledge. So there are two elements that I'll talk about it. These two elements are, of course, citations and references. Now, when I said that academic writing is a collaborative exercise, I say that whatever you're going to study, whatever your research focus is, that it will rest on knowledge created earlier, or ideas based on somebody else's finding, or something which has been built. So citations are ways in which you will give credit to the original authors in an appropriate manner. So if you think of any research that you'll do, let's say, I'm an international relations scholar, so I will talk about international relations in this example. If you have a problem, you can always raise your hand, or you can interject or type in a query. So in an any IR discussion, I could begin with information or knowledge that goes back to Aristotle. I could also cite Thucydides, and much closer, I could be talking about Farid Zakaria, or Kenneth Waltz, or Joseph Nye. So any research will rest on a foundation of knowledge that has been generated over time. And when we do our research, citations are ways in which we give credit to the original authors, and citations are part of the text. I'll explain that in more detail later. Just I'm trying to just introduce you to the idea of citation. The second word that, there are two focus today. One is citation. So citations are ways in which we give credit to original authors in an appropriate manner. And references are something which are provided, which provide the necessary information for readers to identify what the citation is and to find the work by itself. So, I want to explain now what is a citation. So, as I said, all knowledge is based on previously existing knowledge, previously existing arguments, etc. So, what a citation does is it identifies for the reader the original source of any idea, information, or image that is referred to in a work. So, if you are using any idea that's not yours, if you're using any information that is not commonly available or that is not yours, if you're using any image that is not yours, you have to basically identify the original source of that information. And the citation is provided in the body of the paper. I'll give you an example. So what you have in front of your screen is part of a text I wrote on development and democracy. uh, I'll just highlight the portions which I call citation. Can you see this? Redoc 2000 colon 26.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And
In text.
even I'll just scroll through the paper, you'll see this. Now this is of course a specific style of citation. There's again here Redoc 2000, there's Griffiths et al 2002. So this is, let me get back here. So this is what we call a citation, what you just saw. Redoc 2000, it identified for the reader that original source from where I was borrowing that idea or that information. And that citation was made in the body of the paper. What it does is, in very short, the citation sort of acknowledges the source of, it's like a shortened version of it. So I just write in this style the surname of the author, the year of publication, and the page numbers. So this is what we refer to as a citation. While references, all the citations that we've made are compiled together as references at the end of the paper. uh, Let me again take you there. So what you see on your screen now is my references for this paper. I'll just sort of scroll up and down to give you. So you can see here I've made references to, this is a reference to Amartya Sen, to Menokal 2007. So this is just the author and the year, but to Amartya Sen, author, year, and page number. So this is citation, as I told you. And here at the bottom, I've compiled all these references in alphabetical order. So, the Redoc reference that you saw earlier. So suppose a reader was interested in, for various reasons, either you want to confirm that did Redoc actually say what I cite in my paper, or you are interested only in that information that Redoc write, maybe that is your focus. So you'll find Redoc 2000, you'll find the article in the reference. So at the end of the paper, the citations are compiled together as references. And these full citations are meant to help the reader with enough information so that you can locate the source for yourself. It also serves as a way to sort of, sort of check, the truth of what the author is saying. So you see here Amartya Sen, you see, I'll show you Mencall, Alina Mencall 2007, analyzing the relationship in democracy and development. So just to sort of get back, now you have, some idea of, what a citation is and what a reference is. Citation identifies the original source. So if you are borrowing any idea, information, image, in your writing, you have to acknowledge the original source, and in the text you have to do it in short, and there are various styles for it. We'll discuss that. at the end of the paper, all the citations that you make, so wherever you've borrowed your ideas, information, and images from, fact, figures, tables, diagrammatic representation, anything and everything that you've borrowed, they are compiled as references. These full citations are meant to help the reader with enough information about it. Now, I will tell you when you need to cite. So, the idea, of course, you might have understood by now, is that it's to give credit to the people or the original authors in an appropriate manner. And, there's a general saying that if you're in doubt, just cite. There's no such thing as, that you've oversighted or anything. So if you have any doubts whether an argument you're making, whether the information that you have, you feel that it belongs to somebody else, you please cite it. So generally, we say that you should cite every information. You should cite the source every time you incorporate some idea, some data, some information, or you should cite any concept which is not your own. And all this would include, in certain ways, even ideas that directly or indirectly sort of started your own sort of search for knowledge or understanding of the material. So whatever is not yours, you should cite. Generally, if you look at the literature, they say there are 5 principles that you need to follow. I mean, this is gleamed off the internet. This is something from, the Boston University School of Public Health website. So, so they essentially say that there are 5 principles. Off the top of my head, it is quotation. If you are quoting somebody, you should provide a citation. If you're paraphrasing somebody, you should provide a citation. If you're summarizing somebody, you should provide a citation. If you use facts, statistics, dates, or information which is not originally yours, you should cite the source. So if we sort of look at it in detail, quotation, of course, refers to taking the exact words from any other text. You take the exact words from an original source and you use the exact words. And usually, and I think this is something which everybody knows, that when we take the exact words, we put it in inverted commas. It's a quotation. So you have to cite, of course, right? Words that are in quotations are generally understood as not your work. So so you could ask, when should we quote and when should we not? So the general convention, I mean, this depends on your own judgment of what you're writing, but general convention will say that when you cannot explain the concept in your own words, or if you cannot explain the concept any better in your own words, then you should cite the original author. And usually they say, when you use quotation, citing, of course, you will do. I mean, when I'm here, I'm talking about quotation. So you use quotations when you can't explain the concept better. And they say that when you use quotation, try and don't use too many quotations. So I mean, I'm just being random, but maybe not more than 3 lines. But that, of course, depends on your emphasis, your style, your personality, what you're dealing with. And generally they say that every time you use a quotation, you should use at least 2 or 3 lines to analyze, that. So that should sort of give you a balance of how much of your words and how much of, direct quotation you should use. Paraphrasing is, of course, you rephrase or you restate the original idea. And of course, when, we have to be careful about paraphrasing, because often as students, we simply substitute key phrases, with synonyms, and we say, oh, this is our own language. But that's, you maybe go with that, but please cite. So even if you're not directly quoting, if you're paraphrasing it, it requires a citation. If you're summarizing an idea, from an author, oh, then even a summary requires a citation, because you're still borrowing original ideas. And when we sort of cite in paraphrasing or summary, citation should occur in each sentence if your ideas are borrowed. If you have an entire paragraph as a summary, ideally you should cite in each sentence rather than at the end of the paragraph, because wherever your citation it refers to that sentence. And of course, if you use any fact, statistics, dates and information, which is not original, of course everybody knows that 15th August India became independent, so that's common information, right? I mean, you don't need to cite that. But more specifically, that on this day, this is what happened, or when you come up with some specific things which is not widely acknowledged, then you have to use citation. You have to cite the source that you've gotten that information from. And lastly, in these principles, they generally say that if you owe your understanding of the material, or the formulation of your arguments to certain texts, even if you don't directly reference the text, you should cite it, or at least mention it in your references or acknowledgement. So I'll move on to when not to cite, with essentially the warning that if you are in doubt, always cite. So some of the things, the three generally accepted principles where we say that, oh, you don't really need to cite. One is what is well known facts, or what is considered general knowledge. My mention of Indian Independence Day of 15th August, or Republic Day of 26th January. You may not need to cite a source for such common knowledge. Facts which are found in many sources. Uh, so suppose one exercise I generally use is, suppose you have come across a fact, but if it's commonly available in five different authors, five different sources, then a citation is not needed. That you don't need to say 15th August India won independence, or if you're a science student, you don't need to say that water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. So common knowledge, what is considered common knowledge, need not be cited. And second is what is generally accepted, or what is observable facts. So if you know that a fact is generally accepted, you don't need a citation. For instance, it's obvious that smoking is bad for your health, or that most people use mobile phones. These are today generally accepted and easily observable. But if you go into more specific knowledge domains, then you should cite. For instance, if you say that just sticking to smoking, if you talk about the incidence of lung cancer among smokers, you know so that would be more specific information, it would require citation. And the last of thing is, when you don't need to cite, is uh, what we would consider original ideas that you have and your lived experience. So if you are writing about yourself or your lived experience, citation is not necessary. And original ideas include your own research or your own projects, which you've already done. They do not require citations. But you have to be careful with this idea, original ideas. Often uh, we don't know a lot of ideas because we are not exposed to the literature. So many times we believe that we've come up with these ideas, but it's always nice to sort of survey what kind of literature exists. We'll talk about the advantages of citations. So why we need to cite? One is very obvious, is that you need to cite to avoid plagiarism. You know, because these ideas that you're borrowing, these arguments, this social, the body of knowledge that our research rests on, has been generated by scholars like ourselves, authors, practitioners from different time eras, developed over time. So, a key reason to cite is to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism, in short, is basically when you present the words or ideas of someone else as your own without proper acknowledgement of the source. So, often we don't, it's not like we want to steal, but if we don't cite it, you can be accused of plagiarism. Lack of a citation, invites charges of plagiarism. So you should not present the words, so even the words of somebody, even the ideas of someone else, as your own without proper acknowledgement of the source. And any research writing, I told you, requires supporting material from works by others, because, in that sense, you would be expected to cite the people, and you would be expected to cite them correctly, to credit them, even when you summarize or paraphrase information. So, one is to avoid plagiarism, the other is it is more ethical to give credit to those who had the idea. Three, and this is really important, and you'd understand why wider reading is really important, in academic writing. That, when you cite people, it also sort of exhibits familiarity with, the literature in your field. So, this is a point. Often you feel that this idea is yours, but had you, done your literature survey in a more elaborate manner, or in a more wholesome manner, possibly you'd realize that some people have already written. And especially, it happens, it can happen to anybody. So you need to cite to avoid plagiarism. It is more ethical. It also exhibits familiarity with the literature. Fourth, which I've also already mentioned before, is it helps, often when when you read a text, you are reading a text from a particular perspective. Let's say right now I'm writing something on diaspora and the idea of globalization. So when I'm reading the literature in the field of diaspora and globalization, I'm reading from a perspective, right? So the authors have not written from my perspective, but there is information there that is useful for me. So as a reader, these sources and the citations in these articles that I see, they help me find more articles about the topic. Even if that entire text may not be useful for me, specific ideas that the authors have used in the text help me chase what I'm interested in. So it helps readers find the sources that you as a writer have used. Just once, I'll just stop for a minute. Sorry, somebody kept calling me, I thought. So why cite? It's avoid plagiarism, ethical, exhibits familiarity, helps a reader find the sources that you use. And sometimes part of reading a book is that thrill of chasing an idea which may not be the original focus of the writing, but through the references. And fifth is, you need to cite is because it provides evidence about your argument. That's also equally important. Next, we move on to how to cite. There are, of course, very different ways to cite. One is what we call, what I showed you already. you know you put these citations in parentheses. you know so there is what we call parenthetical citations, where the identifying details of the source, redoc, surname of the author, the year of publication 2000, is included in the body of the text. So you saw redoc as the author, 2000, and page number 210. Or some other styles use just author, surname of the author, and page number. The date is omitted. The second style is numerical citations, in which you include a number in the brackets. Let me sort of let me take you to that, but wait, let me finish this, then I'll tell you. So first is identifying the details of the source in parentheses. Second is numerical citations. You include a number in brackets or in superscript, which corresponds to an entry in your numbered reference list. The third is note citations. You include a full citation in a footnote, or what we call the end note. So I'll give you an example of this footnote or an end note right now. So I'm sharing with you an old article I'd written long ago. It's called The Strategic Triangle. You can see India, China, Pakistan. I don't have access to this material, so I just have access to this page. So, this is the beginning of the article, introduction. I want your attention here. Strategic Triangle I've written. And then it's written the relationship between India, China, and Pakistan has been characterized as a strategic triangle. And there is, I hope you can see this one here, in superscript. It's a number in superscript. Can you see that? In second paragraph, first line.
Yes,
And,
sir, it is
then,
visible.
yeah, so then the paragraph continues, and the last line of the paragraph is the relations between India, China, and Pakistan are marked by all the three conditions, whatever three conditions I'm talking about. So this is an example of a footnote I'll give you, because see here, right at the bottom of the page, I have footnote 1, where I reference Kanti Bajpayee, Managing a Strategic Triangle, a chapter published in P. Sahadevan, edited Conflict and Peacemaking in South Asia. And the second footnote is also, citation is also from Kanti Bajpayee's. So I say I bid. So this is an example of a note citation. So in the text, it's indicated with a superscript number or symbol, and I use the full citation in a footnote. This is an example of a footnote. I also have example of a end note, which I'll show you. But let me get back to the presentation. So there are three different ways to cite, putting in the text. When we talk about citation, we are only talking about what we write in the text. So putting author, date, page number in parenthesis is one, or author and page number, parenthetical citation. Numerical citation, I need to still show you. I will just keep it in your mind. And note citation, the footnote I showed you. End note is, of course, the same citations that you saw, is at the end of the book, or as the end of the chapter, or at the end of the paper. Next is, I want to here take you to another page. Now, usually the styles that we follow in social sciences, I'm of course familiar with political science and international relations. So the styles that we follow generally are, APA style or MLA style, or I'll just take you to a external page. Now here, so far what you see on the screen is basically all are parenthetical styles, all are in parentheses, but So within parentheses, there are different styles. The first, which I've highlighted, is modern language MLA, what we call modern language association. It's used across the humanities. So inside the body of the text, you will write the name of the author and page number. In APA style, that's American Physiological Association, in the body of the text, you'll write surname of the author, and with a comma, you'll add the year. In Chicago style, in the text, you'll write the surname of the author and just year, no comma. But let me take you to this page and show it to you. So a citation style is, if you can see this page, so you realize there are, parenthetical types, numerical types, and note citations. So usually we generally talk about these MLA, Harvard, APA. So if you look at it, this page has, I'll show you two styles here. We're not interested in the Harvard style, and of course they also differ across disciplines. So economics uses Harvard style. I mean, this is generic, not necessary. Humanities uses Chicago notes, Harvard and MLA. Political science uses APSA, psychology uses APA, so it's across. So we'll focus on, if you look at the Harvard style, so the in-text citation is this. In the text, you'll just write surname of the author, comma, and year. And in the bibliography, you'll write this. I'll tell you one good way of actually doing this is to look at this website called WorldCat. I'm just opening the text. So I hope you can see on screen, I have a book titled Qualitative Methods in International Relations, a Pluralist Guide. Can you see that?
Sir.
So here you will look at, this, the quotation marks here, which says, cite, number 2, the quotation marks. So if I click on how to cite this, so if I click, a window opens, cite a record, right? So now this book is there and they say select citation style. So right now I've chosen MLA style. So you do realize the surname of the authors are here. There's a full stop and there's a full stop. There is the name of the book is in italics. The name of the publisher is not in italics, and the year. Now I can also check, let's say APA style. APA style, you realize, there is a little difference. Instead of A and D and, they use this and symbol and, then I think the year, wait, let me just check. Yes, so in APA, the year comes here. So if you go to this website, worldcat.org, and if you look for your source, whether it's an article, it's a journal, it's a book, it's many authors, this gives you the different styles. I can go about sort of telling you how to do this, but it's also a lot of information I don't have, that how do you write the name of the journal article in APA, so WorldCat is a really good way to find your source. And then you can sort of follow around that. Actually, what happens, I'll just tell you, is, whether they use one kind of punctuation, whether they put the name of the book in italics, or if it's a journal article, whether they put the name of the article in quotations, whether they put the name of the journal in italics, whether they write the name of the place where it has been published, whether the year comes after the name or after the entire title. This is how it differs. Edited books again are quite different. Like this book that we have in hand is an edited book. Suppose I look at, so let's look at APA style of an edited book. Here they make no reference to the fact that the book is edited. Let's see what it says in Chicago style. Here also it makes no reference. Possibly, I don't know why this, maybe this is a error. Ideally, when it's an edited book, let's see if it shows in ASA. No, they're not making these differences. But let me find another book. Let me find Benedict Anderson. And using this, let me show you the difference. So we select this book, citation. First is ASA, you know. So usually they use the punctuation of full stop. The name of the book is in italics. They say it's a revised edition. Place of publication is there, and the publisher is there. In MLA, let's see what is there. In MLA, year of publication comes right at the bottom, at the end. In APA, it was there. So you do realize there are these differences, and I would suggest you look at WorldCat is one website. The other website that you can look at, let me tell you, is I mean, I have this this the referencing guide here from an Australian university, Murdoch University. So if we go to referencing guides, though actually here I couldn't find how to go to different kinds, but WorldCat would be a good way to sort of look at different referencing styles. It's kind of quite wide, and whether you're looking at a journal, whether you're looking at a department, uh, you know each department or each journal would have a specific set of they choose a particular style. They say, hey, in this department, when you write your dissertation and your term papers, you need to use let's say the MLA style, or you need to use Harvard style. The idea would be that you use one style throughout. If you're using MLA style, you use, and if it's specified by the journal that you have to use MLA style, you will be using MLA style. If it's specified by your department that you use Harvard style, you will be using Harvard style. So the idea is to be consistent with what you use. Use one style. They are different. They're really different kinds of styles. And maybe, for most of us, we wouldn't remember what each of these styles are. And so suppose you finished a paper and you want to reference it, or you want to do citation, then you have to go look at the style if you are unfamiliar with it, and then do it. Keep the page or another article which is referenced in that style open, and say, hey, this is how it's done. And it really differs very minutely. Full stop here, comma here, italics here. When you look at a journal article, whether the volume is in brackets, the number is in brackets, or there is no volume and number written, all this these are some of the differences that you actually see. So let me sort of get back to the PowerPoint. A lot of things we can get back to. So as I said, here I've just used, for, I didn't want to confuse you, I've just said MLA style, and these are all parenthetical styles: APA style and Chicago style. I can give you the reference. I have this for note citations. So I told you there was parenthetical style, parenthesis, second was number, the third is note citations. Note citations are two kinds. One is a footnote and one is an end note. The paper I showed you about the strategic triangle, that was a footnote. It is listed at the bottom of the page in which the citation is made. So the page you saw, I had two footnotes, so 1 and 2. A numerical was placed in the text, superscript 1 and 2, and both of it was listed. The author, title, and the details of the publication was listed at the end of the page. Now, often today, people prefer parenthesis citing. So when we use footnotes today, you should use footnote only to elaborate or explain an argument in the paper, you know, or to give additional information, you know, in that way, that you can use a footnote to maybe elaborate whatever you're writing in the paper, or to explain something which, of course, for reasons that it can't be part of the paper because it's not your central focus. So you can elaborate or explain that argument in the footnote, or you want to give additional information. And footnotes and endnotes both are the same. The difference is of where they are placed. A footnote is at the bottom of the page, and an endnote is at the end of the paper, or end of the chapter, or end of the book. Uh, and so I mentioned citation. Last bit is references, right? So we've talked about how we'll cite ideas, information, you know, when we paraphrase, when we summarize, when we quote, when we borrow facts, figures. So these have already been provided in the text in brief. So at the end of the paper, you will have something called references, and the references will provide the necessary information for readers to identify and retrieve each work that you've cited. So basically, the citations are compiled as references, and full citations are to help readers with enough information. So I'll tell you what it does. I've referred to it earlier. It essentially does is what I'm claiming. So I say Aristotle said this, or I say Mahatma Gandhi said this, and you're like, did Gandhi actually say that? So because I'm saying Gandhi said this, or I'm summarizing Gandhi, or I'm paraphrasing Gandhi, I have to have a citation. So I'll say, in my experiments with truth on so and so page number, he said this. You as a reader can go find that reference, open the page number, and say, did Gandhi actually say this, or am I making it up, or am I misinterpreting what Gandhi said? So, the idea of knowledge that we generate when we write scholarly papers is that they have to be verified. And one of the ways in which we verify this knowledge is through, citation and references. I think I will end here. I've taken quite a lot of time. But I have a list of references. I used, so I did how to do citation, just a Google search. So, there's a text called When to Cite, Boston University School of Public Health. Scribber threw me something. Chicago Manual of Style threw me something. WorldCat I've used. And you have Murdoch University. Thank you. And I'm open to questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation. Sir, the first doubt I have is that can't you use any software to simplify the entire citation process, like Zotero, Mendeley, which are open source softwares already available? And the second question I have, sir, when you write the references, do we need to make it alphabetically at the end of the document when you give the references? And sir, I need you to clarify a bit about self citation. What is self citation and how to go about it? Thank you, sir.
Do I take more questions, or should I answer them?
Sir,
Maybe I'll take some more questions just to get some. I'm
sir,
writing them down.
will you be sharing this PowerPoint presentation with the organizers?
I can, surely.
Thank you, sir. It will be great help.
Yes, Suvecha.
Sir, my question is, I have seen some articles, not research paper, but articles which do not have citations, but they do have references. Like in the body, they do not have those I mean those names or surname of the author in bracket, but they do have references. So is that wrong? And my second question is not a question actually. You told us about how if we have to summarize someone's something and it contains in a paragraph, then we have to or we should cite in each sentence and not only at the end of the paragraph. So can you give or show an example of this?
Okay,
That's
so let me, I think we've got some text on questions on here. Yes, so I'll I'll begin with the questions which have been typed out. So Malati asks, what is the difference between end notes and reference? So end notes is, I mean, usually people don't use end notes now. So it's just the footnote at the end of the book, the chapter, or the paper. While references, when we talk about references, and the references I showed you is the compilation of citations made in the text. So whatever you cited in the text in parenthetical style, you put them together in references. While end notes is, with a superscript, you've marked it and you say 1 is this and 2 is this and 3 is this. The footnotes I showed you just at the end of the chapter. For Sumona, you can always get back if I haven't answered your question adequately, or if you have more questions. Sumona, the difference between references and bibliography is references refers to only what you've cited in the text. Bibliography is much wider reading. A reference is only what you've cited in the text. If you haven't cited it in the text, then it shouldn't be part of references. Bibliography can include what you've cited and more. Uh, Yagyaseni, I don't know if good question you ask. I should also find out whether in-text citation is. I don't think it's included in the word count. Though Microsoft Word would, I suppose, include it in the count, but in-text citation will not be part of the word count of the chapter. And in the appendix you use, usually what we do in political science and international relations is we put primary documents, whether your questionnaire, whether certain kind of documents which are necessary to the text, the questionnaire that you used, in that way. Now let me get back to, I think, Shayantan at the first question. Yes, Shayantan, they are reference. There are softwares. I think even Word sort of talks about softwares for referencing. And but I'm not very familiar with all of them. I prefer to do it still manually. But perhaps, yeah, we should. I should have done some reading on that too. And yes, references mostly are, I think, sort of put into place using alphabetical order. Now, when we talk about self-citation, here we are talking about one is that you're citing yourself, which means you're citing other research that you've done, right? So, so there's also a word called self-plagiarism, which is where you sort of, you know, just reproduce your own writing in toto. So, which is a citation, which would require a citation, but generally they say that you should not be doing that. So when you talk about self citation, if your research is relevant to what you are saying, part of the thing, I think you can totally cite yourself. That is not a problem. Like, let's say, in the article that I shared with you on development and democracy, let's say I write another article later about, democracy and how it is, let's say, uh, let's say I look at the debate whether democracies are good for development or not, and there was certain necessary information required. I could cite this article of mine there. So self citation is fine as long as it follows the general rules of citation, that you are not doing it just for the sake of citing yourself many times over. If it's required, totally fine. And many authors do that because if you look at a body of work, then they've worked on different aspects of it, and some of these citations become necessary. uh, I think Subhecha's question, if you find an article which has no citation, that that's not an academic piece. Here, that idea, we have to go back to what is knowledge. And we have to be extremely, of course, I mean, I'm not saying that what we read in the newspapers doesn't comprise a form of knowledge, but academic knowledge requires the crediting of a paper, requires citations. I suppose the author in that piece didn't provide citations, but generally, was ethical enough to acknowledge the references. But in academic writing, we would not, that wouldn't pass muster. Whether you're looking at a journal article, whether you're looking at a any form of academic writing would not condone that. They would ask you to come back with citations. And the idea I see, so suppose let me read the let me read the development article. The question you have here, that do we have to cite in each sentence? So I have a line here, a part of the paragraph which says, development for Amartya Sen is enhanced by democracy as it plays an instrumental role in empowering people with the ability to shape values and norms, very similar to the emerging principle of democratic ownership of development. Now, it comprises of two or three, I can break the sentence down into two or three specific ideas. So each sentence has to be in certain ways cited, because one sentence carries one idea. We don't know if the previous sentence you've written is your own or it borrows. So if you don't write a citation, then we will think that you've written that on your own. That is what logic would say. Because in the end, citation at the end of a sentence is valid only for that sentence, right? I mean, if I write a paragraph and put a citation in the last sentence, if you look at common sense would tell you that the citation is only for the last line. So
Yes, that's right.
citations are valid only for sentences. There are other ways in which you can do it. You can say that this argument draws from, and specify it. Often, we are using citations here when we sometimes you can name the author. That same publication 2019 page 40 says this. So there are various ways you do that, but I think a citation is valid only for the sentence. So you can come back with more questions. Let me address the ones in the chat box. The next question is, sir, for example, I'm reading a book and in that book the author has cited from another book. Yeah, so no, yeah, I know this is good, but you have to cite the book that you are reading. You can say that, let's say that Amartya Sen cites Mahatma Gandhi. Often I think, as a lot of people possibly take the liberty of using that quotation as, that Mahatma Gandhi said this. No. So if you're reading in a book and in the book the author has cited from another book, you have to cite the book you are reading. You can say that the author has cited so and so, but you have to cite the book you are reading. So that will convey the idea across. I mean, one way would be, of course, it is possible that the book you are reading has misinterpreted the other author, or has wrongly interpreted the other author, or falsely, for whatever reasons. So in that sense, you would either need to check it, but if you can check it, then you can cite from that book itself. Otherwise, usually we would use this when we can't ourselves read that book, or we would do this when we say that, look at how they have misinterpreted Ambedkar, or how they have misinterpreted Gandhi. You understand the logic I'm trying to say is, ideally you should check the book the author has cited. If you can't, then you can of course use cite the author you are reading. But usually we do this either to say that, see how they've done it in the wrong manner or misinterpreted or something like that. I hope I'm able to answer a question and not confuse you. Okay. Yapi, you want me to show you how to write opposite in footnote by using APA style? So
Yes,
let
sir.
let
Yes,
me
sir.
try and use WorldCat. Wait. Opposite usually refers to the reference you've made previously in the text. Isn't that right? Please help me with this. Isn't that
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes. Yes.
So,
Is it right?
so essentially, if I'm citing you, that
Okay.
mulling 2000, and I'm citing you again, then I'll write I bid. But if you're okay, so you're saying, how should I, I'm here a little lost. Let me. WorldCat is not showing that actually. It's just showing.
Sir, I know that after when we use API style in first footnote, for example, if I'm giving I'm taking a footnote from one author,
Mhm.
then first when we write, we have to mention entire information there, and in second, if I'm taking same information from in the same line, then I will use if. And after that, if I'm using this same author's information in next page, I think that time we use opposite, or this is a little bit confusing for me. That is why I'm asking.
Yes, no, I think I was just wondering if you use the surname of the author, comma,
Okay,
opposite.
okay,
So you know that you've referred to the author earlier, so I can find the author earlier for the first time. I'm not sure of this,
okay,
but I think this is what we use, the surname of the author, and
okay.
then we write opposite.
Opposite. Okay, sir. Okay,
But
okay,
I'll
sir.
have
I
to
got.
check this. You also check this. If
Okay,
anybody
sir. I will.
can assist us on this, it would be helpful.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Sharanya, I think IBID refers to it as I think IBID, let me see what it means. It means, uh, one that has just been mentioned. That is what Google tells me. That's used in formal writing to mean in the same book or piece of writing as the one that has just been mentioned. So, like the text I had used where I had referenced Kanti Vajpayee and I referenced him again, so I wrote IBID. So it says that the piece of writing is the one that has just been mentioned. So let me just check opposite in this way also. Maybe Google will give me answers which I don't know. Opposite is an abbreviation of the Latin phrase opero citato, meaning in the work cited. Okay, that I know. Okay, so Melling, I'm right. So, it says here, Collins Dictionary says that opposite is used after an author's name to refer to a book
Okay.
of theirs which has already been mentioned. So what I said,
Okay.
I think is right. You use the name of the author or just the surname of the
Okay.
author, and you
Um,
write opposite.
okay.
So we'll know that you've
Obviously.
already mentioned the name of the author. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Hope
Thank you
that's
so much.
clear. Uh, Abhishek, I'm quite, I'm not the best person to look at technology or software in terms of citation. Even, I'm a political scientist, but yeah, I think there are softwares. I remember Microsoft Word also helps you do. So I'm sure in economics, it must be far more technological in that way. No, so this is a good question. If you're presenting a paper, how can we address the citation? So, like in a PowerPoint, you can also use in-text citation. So you write Sen or Chowdhury here, or, you can speak it out. So PowerPoint, you've written your arguments out and you say this argument, while you speak, you can sort of acknowledge your sources. I think that is very important because often when we speak, it appears that all knowledge is ours. But no, I'm sure that even my talk here today was relied on a lot of website reading, certain texts, my own writings. Any other questions? And here, are we all from social sciences generally? Usually that referencing style also sort of differs depending on even international relations or some aspects of public administration that you use, or if you're a sociologist or an anthropologist, historians. It differs by department, it differs by journal, and the various kinds. You should use WorldCat, especially to build. It is really, really helpful for me when I'm drawing, making a list of reference, because it can give me the style I need. Uh, any other questions? Yes,
S-
Shayantan.
yes, sir. Just one moment, sir. What is the verdict you gave about citing within a if a author has cited another person and you are referring to that person? I couldn't get that. मतलब,
So
of Zelol.
if you
Zelol were
have
asking that question.
if you have so
Mm,
if let's say Amartya Sen has cited Mahatma Gandhi, so ideally you can say that Sen writing that Gandhi said this in. So you have to say which book, in which of Amartya Sen's book say. Let me rephrase this. That Amartya Sen in this book says that Gandhi said this. That is how you have to write it. Ideally, as a researcher, you should go and look at Gandhi's book, whether Gandhi actually said that. But let's say for a reason you don't have access to that material, then you have to cite Amartya Sen. So ideally, you should seek the original text out, but often we would not. We suppose you're not seeking the original text out, or you found the original text and you found that Amartya Sen has cited Gandhi, misinterpreted him. So it's only in these circumstances we'll say that look how so and so has cited, or so and so is misinterpreting so and so in that manner. Sorry if I'm using so many of the same words. Yes,
got it, sir.
Sharanya.
Sir,
Mhm.
for instance, I refer to Mahatma Gandhi's same work
Mhm.
and I quote it in different parts of my article.
Mhm.
So every time while quoting Mahatma Gandhi, I have to mention the same thing. I mean, as citation.
If you're quoting the same thing,
No, sir. Like from the book itself, I am quoting different quotes.
yes, yes. Every time you have to you quote him. As we said, quotation has to be really small. So whether you paraphrase, you borrow his ideas, you have to cite every time you use it. Every time.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So looks like we are done.
Yes, sir. It looks like The questions have been answered, and I would like to take this moment to extend my heartfelt gratitude for such an enriching and insightful lecture, sir. It was great to have you on today's program.
Thank you. You're welcome. Should I email the PowerPoint to you so that everybody can access it?
Yes,
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 sir.
sir. That would be great.
It
Yes.
will be very
Thank you.
helpful, sir.
Very good. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good
sir.
night.
Thank you, sir.